Today on the Blockchain Report, Bitcoin's holding around 110K, which means it's still outperforming the US government's ability to manage money, as America's debt just hit $38 trillion, officially making fiscal responsibility the country's rarest commodity after affordable rent. Tucker Carlson flips from Bitcoin saves freedom to Bitcoin is the CIA because apparently Enlightenment has a news cycle. And yes, people are using AI to talk to God now because even heaven has better response times than customer service at Coinbase. All that and more right now on today's show. Let's go. Good morning, my digital darlings, and welcome back to another episode of the Blockchain Report. I'm Hank Hudson, coming to you live from the land of overpriced lattes and underperforming altcoins, San Francisco, California. It's Thursday, aka the day your motivation dips lower than Melania Coin's daily volume, but hey, we're almost at Friday, and that counts as bullish sentiment around these parts. Now, before we dive headfirst in today's swamp of market manipulation, government gaslighting, and billionaires trying to outmeme each other on X, do the algorithm a solid and hit that subscribe button. And of course, make sure you're following RoxomTV and yours truly at Hank at RoxomTV. Because if you're still getting your market insights from a guy in a rented Lamborghini yelling financial freedom into his phone, well, you're not investing, you're donating. All right, so stick around today. Later in the show as well, we're going to be revisiting one of our favorite interviews with Knut Svanholm, the Bitcoin author, educator, and armchair philosopher, who reminds us why Fiat isn't just broken, it's hilarious. All right, so the caffeine's starting to kick in here. Bitcoin's doing that thing where it teases a breakout just to ghost us later. So let's fire up the market rundown and find out who's soaring, who's snoring, and who's one margin call away from pretending they meant to go long term. Let's check it out. All right, so Bitcoin's been on a bit of an upswing this morning, currently chilling around that 109, close to $110,000 mark. We're up about 1.5% in the last 24, so things are certainly trending in the right direction. But let's take a peek at the charts and see what they are telling us, as we might be nearing a pretty big move, and I want to break it down for you in plain English right here on air. So let's fire them up. The first chart we're looking at today is the short-term holder MVRV Bollinger Bands. Now this one sounds complicated, but here's the simple version. It measures whether short-term Bitcoin investors are overheated, sitting on lots of unrealized profit, or they oversold, meaning they're underwater and probably ready to give up. Now, right now, Bitcoin's sitting below the short-term holder cost basis. That pink line you can see up here near the top, and the deep in the oversold green zone. So historically, these green zones mark bottoming periods. These are times when the weak hands give up and stronger ones start stacking. You can see this same setup here back in March, okay? That yellow oval where Bitcoin chopped sideways. Sentiment at that time was trash, and then the price rocketed higher. We're seeing a similar setup right now. Bands are tightening, volatility is compressing, and when that happens, it's like shaking a soda can. Pressure builds, and something is about to pop. So what that means is we can probably expect some volatility very soon. If it breaks upward, that could be a textbook bounce out of the oversold territory. But if it breaks lower first, hey, that's just the crypto tax you pay before the next rebound. All right, we're bringing up our next chart here. This is the net realized profit loss chart, which shows how much profit or pain investors are actually locking in on chain. Now, when you see the tall green spikes here, that's investors taking big profits, usually near market tops. Red spikes, that's mass capitulation, people panic selling at a loss. Now, look at the trend we're seeing here. Each profit peak has been lower than the one before it. So that's telling us that enthusiasm is beginning to fade. Fewer people are taking profits, which often happens before a deeper correction or a final shakeout. Now, historically, big rebounds tend to start when this chart dips neutral or red, when the weak hands finally flush out. Right now, realized profits are still dominating, meaning we haven't seen that capitulation washout yet. Now, if history rhymes, we might need one last oh crap moment before the next big leg up. So short term, feeling a little bearish. Long term, though, there's opportunity, and the market's cooling off, but that's how bottoms are built. So remember that one. All right, last chart we're bringing up here. Finally, this is Bitcoin's magic lines, aka the moving averages. We are watching the 128, the 200-day, and the 365-day lines. These act like emotional support animals for traders. When Bitcoin's above them, everyone's feeling safe. When it drops below them, Twitter tends to get very loud. Right now, we just broke back above the 200-day moving average. That's around $108,000 or so, which is a solid short-term win for the bulls out there. Now, the next challenge is the 120-day MA at 113.6K, which perfectly lines up with the short-term holder cost basis we talked about earlier. That's the level we want to watch. So if Bitcoin can break and hold above 114K, that's your green light for a potential short-term rally. So back above 108K, good news. Above 114K, it's time to party. All right, so what's the overall take on today's market, right? Well, Bitcoin right now is kind of in that awkward phase where fear is high, conviction's a little low, and the on-chain data says we're closer to a bottom than a blow-off top. Short-term, volatility is likely, but mid-term, this looks more like a reset than a collapse. So the bottom line here, gang, is breaking back above 114K and holding it turns the market to bullish. But we fall below 108K again, and we could retest that 100 to 104K zone before the next leg higher. Either way, the setup is textbook late cycle shakeout, and shakeouts are how you separate the tourists from the true believers. All right, we're taking a quick break, but when we're back, we're getting into this morning's bull run with today's top story, so stay tuned. We'll be back right after this.
The future of capital markets runs on Bitcoin. Introducing Roxom, the first ever exchange where Bitcoiners can trade treasury stocks entirely in BTC. Get exposure to top Bitcoin holding companies like MicroStrategy and Metaplanet, priced in Bitcoin from the start. No fiat, no middlemen. This is what financial freedom looks like. Early access now live at Roxom.com/treasuries. Built by Bitcoiners for Bitcoiners.
Welcome back. It's time for this morning's bull run where we go over the top stories of the day, and we got a lot to talk about, so let's get into it. First up, the U.S. national debt just hit $38 trillion. That's so much money, the highest number in history, and the government's response appears to be, cool, what's another trillion? The U.S. added $1 trillion in a little over 2 months after crossing $37 trillion back in mid-August and $36 trillion last December. That's $2 trillion in 10 months, or roughly $1 trillion for every time the government held a meeting about fiscal responsibility. Now, experts call it unsustainable, which is the polite economist language for we are totally screwed. Maya McGinnis from the Committee for a Responsible Federal Budget said rising spending and entitlements are out of control and called for fiscal discipline. Michael Peterson of the Peter J. Peterson Foundation added, if it feels like we're adding debt faster than ever, it's because, well, we are. He said the pace has doubled since the year 2000. Interest payments alone have already cost the U.S. $4 trillion in the past decade and could hit $14 trillion in the next 10 years. That's money that could have gone to, say, I don't know, healthcare, infrastructure, or literally anything other than paying interest on past mistakes. The Congressional Budget Office now projects the debt to GDP ratio will rise from 100% in 2025 to 120% by 2035, meaning we owe more than we make and we're still going shopping. Bitcoiners, of course, see this as the ultimate advertisement for hard money, because when the dollar supply is infinite and politicians treat debt ceilings like speed bumps, the case for a fixed supply asset starts to look less like rebellion and more like common sense. And Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro says his country now has 5,000 Russian-made missiles ready to counter U.S. forces. Maduro says the missiles are key to defending national sovereignty and ensuring peace, which is an interesting interpretation of both of those words. The U.S. has had a small naval fleet stationed off of Venezuela's coast as part of a counter-narcotics operation, which Washington insists is about drugs, and Caracas insists it's about a regime change. Now, Maduro accused the U.S. of using the mission as a pretext for aggression, saying Venezuela is ready to defend every inch of the homeland. The missiles, he said, guarantee readiness against any imperialist threat. It is worth remembering the U.S. destroyed several Venezuelan speedboats last year, and that it said they were smuggling narcotics, claims that Maduro denies. Or in other words, tensions remain sky high, and apparently so will anything that flies too close. And oil prices jumped again today after the U.S. slapped sanctions on Russia's two largest oil companies over the ongoing war in the Ukraine. Brent crude oil climbed $1.76 from $1.76 to $64, and WTI rose from $1.68 to $60. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent said the move targets the Kremlin's war machine and warned that more sanctions could follow if Russia doesn't agree to a ceasefire. The U.S. had previously avoided sanctioning Russia's oil sector, opting for trade restrictions, but that changed after President Trump approved this new wave of measures. Reporter Nick Schifrin from PBS News breaks down the new measures being imposed by President Donald Trump. Let's take a look.
They target Russia's largest oil companies, that is Rosneft and Lukoil. And the reason is that that's significant is that oil and gas is Russia's largest single revenue source, basically the backbone of Russia's economy. So less revenue presumably means less money to go into the war machine to attack Ukraine, which is why Ukraine and its allies have been asking the U.S. and Europe to actually take this step for many years, in fact. The sanctions will make it harder for banks to do business with Rosneft and Lukoil and harder for insurers to cover any transactions that involve those companies. And that means fewer Russian energy exports. It also could mean that Russia will have to lower the price of its oil and gas exports, therefore lowering revenue even further. The Biden administration declined to take this step because it was worried about the effect of gas prices here in the U.S., but today gas prices are the lowest level they've been in years. All of the experts, Jeff, I speak to you tonight, say the administration could have taken an even more dramatic step on this, but they call this a major step because, again, as you said at the top, this is the first time in this term that Trump has proven that he is willing to impose major new sanctions on Russia.
And that raises the question, why now?
Right. And the answer to that, I think, is as important as any actual financial impact on revenue in Russia, because the political statement behind this announcement tonight is very clear. The Treasury Department saying it was imposing sanctions, quote, as a result of Russia's lack of serious commitment to a peace process to end the war in Ukraine. It comes just a few days after President Trump met with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky in the Oval Office, a meeting in which Trump refused to provide long-range weapons and seemed to pressure Zelensky into territorial concessions. But with this announcement, Trump is taking that first step to impose sanctions on Russia, as he said in the Oval Office this afternoon.
Today is a very big day in terms of what we're doing. Look, these are tremendous sanctions. These are very big. Those are against their two big oil companies. I think they want peace. I think they both want peace at this point. It's been, it's almost 4 years. You're going into 4 years. And if I were president, it never would have started. But yeah, it's time.
Well, it's time indeed, as analysts say that the reaction in oil prices has been modest so far because past sanctions were often watered down or delayed. Still, the immediate $2 per barrel spike shows that traders aren't ignoring it. The U.S. has also asked Japan to halt Russian energy imports ahead of Trump's upcoming Asia visit because nothing says diplomacy like telling other countries to stop buying stuff. The bottom line is that energy markets are tightening again, Russia's exports are shrinking, and oil just got another bullish headline. And Tesla just dropped its Q3 results, and it's a mixed bag with a side of Elon showmanship. Revenue came in at $28 billion, beating the expectations of $26.3 billion, but profits, not so much. Tesla's earnings were 50 cents a share, missing the 54 cents a share estimate. Emissions credits, those magical subsidies that keep Tesla in the green, also shrank, dragging profitability lower. And the stock dropped about 3% after hours because Wall Street loves growth, but it hates math. Tariffs are also biting the electric car maker. Tesla said it took a $400 million tariff hit in Q3, up from $300 million last quarter, thanks to Trump's trade war sequel. But Elon Musk is trying to spin the negative headlines by announcing it's launched a ride-hailing service in the Bay Area using its robo-taxi tech, though hilariously, it's still driven by actual humans. Not sure how that works. He told investors that Tesla expects to have no safety drivers in large parts of Austin by the end of the year. Musk also said robo-taxi tests will roll out in Nevada, Florida, and Arizona. So basically anywhere that already lets you gamble, drink, or melt. Meanwhile, other investors are just wondering if their cars will stop at red lights. Nancy Tengler from Laffer Tengler Investments said the big focus now is the robo-taxi rollout in 2026, because clearly we're not stopping until every Uber driver is officially unemployed. And apparently Bitcoin is dipping below $100,000, and apparently it's inevitable, and it could happen this weekend. That's according to Standard Charter's head of digital assets, Jeffrey Kendrick. But don't panic just yet. He also says it might be the last time it's ever that cheap. Bitcoin's recent rally to an all-time high of 126K in early October was interrupted by renewed U.S.-China trade war drama, which triggered a sell-off back on October 10th. Kendrick says the key question now is how far does Bitcoin need to fall before finding a base? His answer, probably under six figures, but not for long. He's watching the gold to Bitcoin flow, where traders are literally selling gold and buying BTC, a rotation that he calls constructive for forming a Bitcoin low. That's the polite way of saying the smart money is done with the shiny rocks. He told clients to stay nimble and ready to buy the dip below 100K, calling it the last time Bitcoin is ever going to be below that level. So according to Standard Charter, sub 100K Bitcoin isn't a crash, it's a clearance sale. His year-end price target is 200K with $500,000 by the end of 2028, which means the bank that once called crypto a fad is now saying you'll wish you had bought too. And Washington had a crypto cage match this week, and it wasn't pretty. A group of Senate Democrats met with top crypto executives in D.C. to discuss a new digital asset regulation bill, and the meeting went about as smoothly as a ledger update. The proposal, leaked earlier this month, aimed to let the Treasury Department decide when someone exercises control or influence in DeFi, which critics said would basically ban DeFi altogether. So yeah, not quite a hit. According to a source in the room, one furious senator opened by saying, "I'm really effing pissed about what happened last week." Always a great way to start bipartisan collaboration, right? She accused crypto advocates of letting Republicans use your megaphones to F us, proving once again that crypto brings people together, just not peacefully. Democrats say they do want a bill passed, but trust was broken, and they warned if the industry groups try to derail the process again, it's going to set us back, which in Congress means nothing happens until at least 2030. Meanwhile, the Republican Senate Banking Committee held its own meeting where members called for Democrats to commit to a markup date and finally give the industry some regulatory clarity. In other words, stop fighting and pick a referee already. Yeah, that would be nice, wouldn't it? And President Trump is literally tearing down part of the White House now, and no, that's not a metaphor this time. As of Wednesday, demolition crews were ripping apart the East Wing, which used to house the First Lady's offices, ceremonial rooms, and a bunker built during World War II. Trump says it's all to make way for his new 90,000 square foot ballroom, a project he calls necessary to host state dinners and other events. Now, when he first announced the plan, he promised it wouldn't touch the actual White House, but now he admits in order to do it properly, we had to take down the existing structure. Or, in other words, it was cheaper to bulldoze history. Officials say the East Wing demolition should be done by this weekend, making this the fastest teardown of a presidential legacy since Nixon's tapes. Trump insists the ballroom will cost $300 million, up $100 million from his original estimate, but that's 100% paid for by me and some friends, which probably means future donors with deep pockets and deeper ambitions. The new ballroom will hold 650 to 1,000 guests, depending on whether it's a gala or a campaign rally. Architects say it'll be nearly twice the size of the entire White House residence. Critics, though, aren't particularly thrilled about this. A George Washington University law professor said the move likely violates the National Historic Preservation Act, calling it short-sighted, which is historian speak for, "Are you out of your mind, sir?" Now, the East Wing, built in 1902, once hid the Presidential Emergency Operations Center, the underground bunker where Cheney sheltered during 9/11 and Trump hid during the 2020 protests. Now, it's rubble. Trump's also gilded the Oval Office, paved over the Rose Garden, and plans to build a mini Arc de Triomphe near the Arlington Cemetery. So, yeah, forget Make America Great Again. At this point, it's Make the White House Mar-a-Lago again. All right, we're taking a break, but when we're back, we're going to be revisiting one of our favorite interviews with author and philosopher Knut Svanholm. So stay tuned. That and more Blockchain Report is coming your way right after this break. Are you interested in effortlessly growing your Bitcoin portfolio? Sure you are. I mean, I sure am. The Bitcoin credit card by Gemini earns you Bitcoin back on every purchase. You can use it like any credit card. You can buy lunch, gas, or your weekly groceries, and you'll earn up to 4% back instantly in Bitcoin or one of over 50 other cryptos straight to your account. All that with no annual fee, and right now, you can grab a $200 Bitcoin welcome bonus. It is the easiest way to start building your Bitcoin stack. Just go to Gemini.com and learn more.
Security matters. Zappo Bank, the only way to bank your Bitcoin. Apply now at zappobank.com.
All right, welcome back to the Blockchain Report. We are going to dive into our second deep dive of the day, and our next guest went from captaining ships across real oceans to captaining ideas across Bitcoin Twitter. He's written some of the most important books in the Bitcoin space, Sovereignty Through Mathematics and Everything Divided by 21 Million, the latter so influential it basically became a rallying cry for the entire movement. He coined the meme that turned into a mindset, runs the Bitcoin Infinity Show, and somehow manages to make armchair philosophy, Austrian economics, and dad jokes all part of the same conversation. Let's give a big Blockchain Report welcome to Knut Svanholm, everybody! Knut, welcome to the show. We're super excited to have you. How are you this morning? Thanks for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. What a fantastic introduction. Yeah, great. Great to be here.
Oh, the pleasure is all ours, and you are a man deserving of such introductions, Knut. You have had a super interesting career, and I just want to dive into it. I mean, you spent years at sea as a captain and crew manager. Tell me, do you see any parallels between sailing ships in storms and sailing through Bitcoin's seemingly constant volatility?
Yeah. I'd say it's the freedom aspect of it all. So, like, freedom through scarcity. Like on the ocean, you're confined to this space of however big the vessel you happen to be on is, and you can't go anywhere else than that. But in that confined space, you can do exactly what you want, and there's no one that can do anything about that. So in that sense, you're free. So you're free within a system that you voluntarily signed on to. So in that sense, I think it's like very much like Bitcoin, even though the Bitcoin is a bigger vessel than most vessels on the Atlantic Ocean.
Yeah, well put. And you communicated this a bit in your first book, Sovereignty Through Mathematics, which has become an absolute classic in the space, even listed as recommended reading on michaelsaylershope.com site. So it begs the question, did you realize at the time you were writing this that it would end up being on so many Bitcoin syllabi?
Absolutely not. So what I did was, I had written articles for a while and put my name out there. And then I compiled the articles into a book, and I knew nothing about publishing or anything at the time. But then that compilation book was the only book I had my name to. So I thought, I'd better write a proper book, like a book about Bitcoin somehow. So my New Year's resolution for 2019 was to write a page a day for the entire year. And as you do with New Year's resolutions, I broke it after I got bored with it, and after 106 days, actually. So it's more of a pamphlet than a book. And then I published it, and nobody gave a crap, except another Bitcoiner, even a core developer. I'm not going to dox his name or her name or their name. But that helped me. That was very good at editing and helped me edit the entire book, except for the last chapter, which he didn't agree with some of the ideas in the book, and therefore he didn't want his name on it. But it got a ton better because of that, and I sort of recognized that I needed some more self-criticism in my writing. The rest of the story is I brought 50 copies of this book to Baltic Honey Badger in Riga, the OG conference in 2019, and I sold 25 of them, almost all over the Lightning Network, and this was 2019, so that wasn't very easy to do. But somehow I managed that, and I gave the other 25 away to important names in Bitcoin. Like all my idols were there from the internet, and I got to know a lot of new people who weren't like recognized at the time, but in hindsight, I've realized what a fantastic event that was, and how lucky I was to be there. Like, I befriended Gigi and Max Hillebrand and Giacomo and all of these people that are now very well recognized names in the space, and it's so good to have been there, and it's such a good start. And then the book took off. Like, after a while, it started to get a lot of attention, and I never expected that. These were scribblings from my bedroom. I had no delusions of grandeur back then. Now I do, of course, but back then I didn't. But that recognition sort of ignited more spark in the fire within me, and I wanted to write more and better stuff, and here we are.
I love that. Knut, when I was doing my due diligences on you, I realized that despite your many successes, you have a really great sense of humor about yourself that really stuck with me. In fact, I saw that you've called yourself an armchair philosopher and even an international village idiot, which obviously is not the case. So it makes me wonder, is this just branding for humility's sake, or does it reflect something real about how you want people to kind of approach your work?
No, it's actually because I'm absolutely the humblest Bitcoiner on earth. There is no second humblest Bitcoiner. I'm the humblest one. And even I think my books are the best books ever written, like not only in Bitcoin, but that ever came out of mankind. And that coming from the humblest Bitcoiner ever means quite a lot, actually.
It does. And for someone who's just getting introduced to you and your work, how do you explain what sets your books, or what you think sets your books apart from the standard Bitcoin 101 guides that are out there?
I mean, they have a lot of similarities with other books, but they're written in a lighter tone, I think, and at the same time they go quite deep with the philosophical ideas. And of course, they connect praxeology and Austrian economics to Bitcoin, and they dare to think far ahead into the future. I tend to try to extrapolate the thought vector as far as it wants to go into the future, which is probably how everything divided by 21 million became a thing. No one, I believe, had taken it to that extreme before. But it's the inevitable end result of having a money that is that will sooner or later be adopted by everyone on Earth and by every single value expression on Earth. That's what that means. Yeah, I think that's what they bring. They're at times more toxic than other Bitcoin books. They're fairly easy to read. I don't do a lot of references or quotes or graphs and pictures and stuff. They're text, paragraph per paragraph, every paragraph a thought nugget, and so like I'd like to think of them as thought nugget buffets, so you can go in there and have a taste of a thought. every now and then.
Oh yeah, everyone loves a good buffet. I wish there were still more of them. They used to have those sneeze guards and stuff. Now I'm glad you mentioned everything divided by 21 million, because that phrase went from a meme to practically a philosophy at this point. So how did that come about, and why do you think it clicked? And a holiday. So how do you think it clicked so deeply for people in the culture? Like it's kind of grown into its own thing. It's crazy.
It's a lot of it has to do with the visualization of it. So it's not entirely mine, and I don't view the intellectual I don't like intellectual property at all. So it's a collaboration. The sentence that sparked the thing is from an article I wrote for Citadel 21 magazine, which is Hodlonaut's Bitcoin fanzine thingy that he had a couple of years back. And funnily enough, the article was published on the 21st of August 2020, which I didn't realize until after the first Infinity Day, the year after, 21st of August 2021 was celebrated. So that's just a ridiculous coincidence. But the sentence in the article was, imagine everything there is and everything that ever will be divided by 21 million. And then the article got turned into an audio version. Guy Swan read it on his pod. And then that audio version was made into a animated video by Yoni Appelberg, a very underrated Bitcoiner. It has done a lot of great work. He's got a book out called Abundance Through Scarcity, highly recommended. And I've done a handful of videos with him, and there are new videos in the works. They are coming sooner or later. But anyway, that video, I think is our first collaboration, became that sort of spurred the meme. And I tweeted about it, and it used the graphic in a tweet that got retweeted by some really big accounts like Sailor and Adam Back and stuff. And all of a sudden, it was everywhere. And this was during COVID and during the lockdown. So I wasn't traveling a lot back then. But when I started traveling, I realized how big this thing had become. I was recognized in the streets of Miami and stuff, like a very weird thing to happen to a guy in his mid-40s. And like, it's just very surreal, the whole thing. And now I got a subfolder in my Everything Divided folder on my computer with tattoos from around the world, where people have tattooed the equation into their bodies. So it's a very weird journey. It has been a very weird journey for sure. The surreal doesn't end. It's like how I see it, and the other like domino effects of what this thing became is it's just absurd. What kind of life I'm living now compared to the kind of life I led back when I was in shipping. It's very different, to say the least.
Yeah, no, your journey has been a really wild and interesting one. And it's not that big of a surprise, though, to me that people have really embraced your work. I mean, you have this really unique blend of philosophy and economics and memes in your work, as we just talked about. And as we know, like, crypto and Bitcoin has always kind of been this unique space that embraced memes seemingly from the get-go. There's always kind of been this weird entertainment element to it. Why do you think memes are so effective, or such an effective way to teach Bitcoin compared to traditional finance books? Because it seems totally unique to the space.
It's funny that you should say crypto, because I just saw a very, very wonderfully confused crypto version of the equation, if you will, over Hong Kong. They had a drone show where they put the equation the wrong with the wrong way around. So it was 21 divided by infinity, and the M wasn't there. It's just 21 divided by infinity. And this is like, it applies to Bitcoin. It does not apply to crypto, because then there's no 21M anymore. Then it's just infinity divided by infinity, right? So no. It's interesting, that dichotomy. It's like the most honest and sincere thing ever. which is Bitcoin, in the same room as the most insincere things ever, which are the cryptos. So and I am a conviction deepener more than an orange pillar, I would say, and a lot of that has been telling people about the difference between Bitcoin and crypto, and that they're basically polar opposites.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I feel like we're starting to see that now more than ever. There really is Bitcoin and then just kind of everything else. And you've done a really great job of articulating a lot of these beliefs of yours in your writing style. I took a look at some of your past work, and it isn't dry or academic. It kind of reads more like a manifesto or a passionate rant that you couldn't hold back. Was that intentional from the start, or is that just kind of your natural style of communication?
It's funny that you should say that, because now I've done re-edits of all the books, so they're as good as they can be now, and they have these new beautiful covers. This is my second book, Independence Reimagined. The reason I'm showing this one is that we're starting the Bitcoin Infinity Academy for this book next week. Releasing it as a course where Luke the Wolf and I discuss the ideas in each chapter. And there's a video per week, and we're releasing the whole thing for free on Noster, week by week, chapter by chapter. That there's a Geyser fund for that project. You can go to geyser.fund/project/infinity if you want to know more about it, or just watch the show. Where was I going with this? The manifesto thing. So when we've been editing and when we wrote Inverse of Clown World together, he picked up on that too, that the books tend to start off as these thought nugget buffets or educational things, and then they become more and more manifesto-y as the further into them you get. And that was definitely the case for the Praxeology book. I added the 3 chapters to that. That's a book I released 2 years ago. It's behind me here somewhere. And I re-edited the whole thing and basically rewrote the whole thing. So I'm very proud of that book, but it definitely goes to more and more manifesto-y territories as the further along you get, the deeper into the book you get. So I guess that's just my style of writing.
I like it. The passion shines through, and I'm glad you brought up the inverse of the clown world. You framed Bitcoin in that book as kind of an antidote to societal dysfunction. Can you unpack what you mean by Bitcoin being the inverse of the chaos that we're seeing everywhere today?
Well, everything that's true for fiat, the inverse of that is true for Bitcoin. And what I mean by that is, like, fiat is not voluntary. It's imposed on you. Like, you have to pay your taxes in fiat, for instance, and they can print fiat. So already there, it's in my view a criminal. That's criminal. Like, people shouldn't do that to one another. What gives any man a right to do that to anyone else? So it's like the opposite of truthfulness, whereas Bitcoin is absolutely truthful because you can check for yourself that it is. You can verify every single transaction that ever happened in Bitcoin by just looking at the data. So it's the first time in human history where the map defines the territory. And this means so much more than people think it does. Because at the end of the day, all Bitcoin is an agreement on a fixed set of rules. And the reason we agree on this specific set of rules is that it allows for totally honest money that can't be counterfeited. It allows for resistance to replicability, something we cannot copy. And that is, by the way, the first thing that struck me as odd about this technology. Like, when I first heard about it, it's like, how can that be? How can something on the internet not be copyable? Like, you can copy everything. You can just copy paste information. It's information. Of course, it can be copied. And that's the very thing that intrigued me. And it wasn't until years after that I finally clicked that the reason that you cannot copy it is because the thing you cannot copy is not on the internet, it's in your head. It's always a secret you keep from someone. So whether you actually memorize your private key, whether you memorize your 12 words or the location of your hardware wallet and the PIN code or whatnot, not your keys, not your coins still applies. So And it's always a secret kept from everyone else. And the reason you believe that nobody else knows your secret is what makes you able to use this secret as money. Are you following me here?
Yeah.
So what that means is that every single Satoshi lives in someone's head somewhere, because the ability to move them lives in someone's head somewhere. But it's all based on probabilities and how plausible something is. So it's not very plausible that someone else owns the same or knows the same string of numbers that my private key in my private key, because it's super hard to find. There are more private keys than stars in the universe and blah blah blah, all this stuff. But you don't really own your Bitcoin. You have just found a way of communicating value truthfully to your fellow man. And what that does is it removes the profitability of aggression. Because I can point a gun at your head and say, give me all your Bitcoin. And I, as the attacker, have no way of knowing if you gave me all your Bitcoin or if you gave me parts of it or if you didn't have any. Because you cannot prove that about any other human being right now. Theoretically, every single person on Earth could own, quote unquote, own all the Bitcoin. And we have no way of knowing. You can make educated guesses, but in the long run, it really changes our relationship with aggression. And that's the beauty of it. It really is hope. It really is peace. It's opt-in. It's totally voluntary. And you cannot corrupt the system as easily as you can with fiat, or all fiat is corrupt. So I think this is the fact that it lives within us and that it allows us to communicate now truthfully and honesty and without aggression means that we are now elevated as human beings into something better than we were, like what we were always supposed to be. It's so simple. Human beings have two means of resolving conflict, and conflict can only arise because of scarcity somewhere, like or perceived scarcity. And now we've always had two ways of resolving conflict: communication and violence. And all communication, all language is really aimed at resolving conflict somewhere, if you really think about it deeply. And now, all of a sudden, it was always more profitable in the long run for all of mankind to use communication instead of aggression. But now Bitcoin sort of points that out to each and every one of us. Like, if we're just awesome to one another and respect each other's property, and we don't violate, we live by, don't steal, then everyone is better off. What it leads to is 8 billion people working in service of 8 billion people. Everyone on Earth collaborating instead of coercing. And none of these political games, Clown World, will apply any. Like, Clown World games will not work on a Bitcoin standard. You cannot achieve wealth by working for the government or providing lubrication, as I like to call it, by accountants and tax lawyers and stuff. They're lubrication companies that make the inevitable government rape a little less a little easier to bear. But what they're selling is basically lubrication. So none of that will work. Being politically connected is not important anymore, and this levels the playing field on so many levels of society. I mean, just go to a proper Bitcoin conference and you can already feel it and live in this world. Nobody gives a shit if you're a billionaire or a bum. You will be treated with respect if your ideas are good and if your arguments are good, and you will not be treated with respect if your arguments are shit. This is the culture I fell in love with. Recently, maybe Bitcoiners have become more diplomatic. I think there's a linear relationship between how disagreeable you are and how early you were to Bitcoin. So the cypherpunks, the early cypherpunks, and Hal Finney and Satoshi and such, they were very disagreeable. They argued about everything and could never agree on anything. except we were lucky that they could agree on something in the end and actually make Bitcoin work. And then in my generation and generations around my generation, we have slightly disagreeable, often obnoxious people on the internet, but that could at least have fun together. And when you go in your 2020s instead of the 2017s, you get your Joe Halls and your Efrat Fenningtons and you're nice people that are actually diplomatic, even though they have ANCAP ideas. So I think Bitcoin becomes more and more as Bitcoin becomes more and more for the everyday man, it also becomes more and more for the less toxic. And there's all of that is a trade-off, of course, because we needed that disagreeability and this adversarial thinking to make it work in the first place. But yeah, going into the future, I think there is a second best. And I think that second best is Bitcoin. And I think the best is what it has always been, your integrity. Bitcoin has just pointed out how insanely valuable that is. Your reputation and your integrity, like the Scarface quote, all I have in this world is my word and my balls, and I don't break them for no one. That is truer than ever on a Bitcoin standard. And hopefully it will make more and more people value themselves and their word higher, and make them more honest. At least that's what I foresee. And the system is much more beautiful than we think it is. The Beatles said, all you need is love, and Bitcoin, that was always true. They just hadn't found the equation for it, which Satoshi did. And the solution to the equation is, of course, everything divided by 21 million. Not 21 divided by infinity, Hong Kong.
Get it together, guys. Someone's getting fired. Now, Knut, I really love and appreciate your ability to look at Bitcoin through this philosopher's lens. And I think you kind of touched on it before, but I would love to get into it a little bit more deeply. As in the past, you've said Bitcoin isn't just about money. It's about how people choose to live. Is that what you kind of mean by like Bitcoin? If we all were more like that, it'd be a world of more like integrity and treating people equally across the board, regardless of status or stature? Or could you expand on that a little for me?
Yeah, this is sort of, if I'd said anything like that, I sort of want to take it back, because it sort of implies that Bitcoin has other use cases than money. And I think other use cases than money are dangerous for Bitcoin. Just as,
okay.
And also, like, if I'm to unpack that a bit, I think the store of value, medium of exchange is a false dichotomy. You need both for money to actually be money and function properly. So I prefer the term medium of exchange over space and time. So it's two sides of the same coin, literally. And right now, real estate is being used as a medium of exchange over time, or what people like to call a store of value, which makes real estate worse at its original functionality, like what it was intended to be, like housing for human beings. If a billionaire can buy up all the beachfront property and there are empty houses everywhere, I live in an area with a lot of empty houses, and it is because people buy them and use them as their savings account and not as their domicile. So that makes houses being used as money makes them worse as houses, if you know what I mean. The thing is that the same is true for money. So if money has other use cases than medium exchange over space and time, it becomes a worse form of money. Gold is a worse form of money because it's used in jewelry and some industrial use cases. That distorts the price signals of gold, and it makes it a worse medium of exchange and a worse unit of account. So then the same is true for Bitcoin. If you clog the chain with dick butt JPEGs, it will become a worse medium of exchange. It will be more expensive to fire up a node and more expensive to transact. So so I'm a big believer in Bitcoin being money and nothing else, because that's what frees us up, and that's what we can then use for everything else. Everything divided by 21 million doesn't mean everything divided by 21 million and a dick butt JPEG. Like, it means 21 million. That's the important thing here. If we can make that happen by doing our due diligence and defending our network through our nodes, then we have a real shot at world peace. Nothing less than that.
Yeah. So it kind of sounds like you're on the Jack Dorsey train of thought, where it's like, in order for Bitcoin to truly fulfill its destiny, we will need to look at it as not just a store of value, but also as a medium of exchange. Am I getting that correctly?
No, not really. There's a nuance there.
Not really? Okay.
Sure. As I said, medium. The dichotomy is false. It doesn't matter when you spend it. It only matters that you can spend it. So,
Got it.
Every medium of exchange is exchanged through time also. It's never only through space. Money is never in circulation. It always belongs to someone. And time will have to pass before it's exchanged for something else and can belong to someone else. So it has to function over time. And that's why fiat is so crap. Like, gold was a good medium exchange over time because it sort of kept its value over long time periods. It was crap as a medium exchange over space because it's fucking heavy. Fiat, it's a good medium exchange over space because you can trade the bills easily. And now with fintech apps and other abominations, you can send it quickly to your fellow man if you don't send too much of it, because then the bank and the government who really own your money will be angry for some fucking reason. Yeah. So fiat is a good medium exchange over space, but not over time, because it loses value because some people have the privilege of being able to counterfeit it and print more of it. Bitcoin functions as both, solves both problems, or at least makes provides us with a much better version of medium exchange over both space and time. They hold their value better over time, and they're easier to exchange with one another through QR codes. It's and just 12 words. The 12 magic words are actually magic. You can tell someone the 12 magic words, and after that they can do whatever they want with that Bitcoin. So there's so much here, and it's so much bigger than people think it is. That's my message here, I guess. I have, as I always do, forgotten the question.
Oh, no, I was just
about medium exchange.
That was a good. Yeah. That was a great breakdown. I was just trying to. Yeah. Now you lost me. I was just so engulfed in your words. I lost my own train of thought here. But this is why you're the philosopher here. You're able to think in these bigger abstract terms and relate them to life and Bitcoin. And one thing I thought that was interesting that I was reading about you was that you once called Bitcoin a once in a civilization discovery. Now, if that's true, what responsibility do writers and educators and philosophers like yourself have in shaping how people understand it going forward?
They have the responsibility to take this opportunity, this tool for emancipation seriously. And to do that, you need to do your homework. You need to understand not only how Bitcoin works, but how money works and how horrible the situation we're in really is. How much control a certain class of people have over you, and how and why you should reclaim the driver's seat of your life and take responsibility, and thereby freeing yourself from the shackles of statism and interventionism. Right? You're living in a system, if you're on fiat and still not on Bitcoin, you're living in a system where your bank account is a 2 out of 3 multisig between you, the bank, and the state. And they only need one key to stop you from using your money. And that is not a world I want to live in. And I don't want to live in a world where, or I don't want my children to grow up in a world where they're forced to do stuff instead of like the base layer of society being voluntary exchange. That's how societies should function. And we're in this paradigm where we live in the illusion of wealth rather than actual wealth. People are indebted over their ears. Even nations are indebted. Like there's like 4 nations on earth that don't have national debt, which is just think about that for a second. That's it's a disaster, and it's all self-imposed. Like we've fallen for this scam for way too long. Fiat money is fraudulent money. It's fiduciary media. It's fictitious, and we're using it because they will throw us in jail if we don't. Except if they don't know that we don't use fiat, and that's where Bitcoin comes in. So a silent revolution, a grassroots movement that is non-violent, just beautiful. Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, and I think that kind of relates. I think I've heard you talk about Bitcoin as freedom money. Is that kind of in that same train of thought? Like, how exactly do you feel like Bitcoin changes that relationship between individuals and the state? Could you go into that a little more?
Bitcoin is the antidote to the dollar and to the fiat monetary system. They cannot coexist in the long run. There is absolutely no way. This is a winner-takes-all game. Do we want to live in the Orwellian, omnipotent surveillance state and have a what Orwell called a constant boot to our heads in the future? Or do we want to live in freedom and make our own choices? And it's which way, Western man? It's super simple. You have the voluntary system and you have the involuntary system. And the more of us that dare to take the leap over to the voluntary system, and you don't have to do it all at once, but you can be Bitcoin curious, and hop over step by step and see what that world is like and how beautiful it is when you find it. And there are great tools nowadays that weren't around back in when I started with this for peer-to-peer and anonymous exchanges between people. There's a great app called Vexel, for instance, where you can find other Bitcoiners to trade with in a peer-to-peer way. So everything is encrypted. It takes your phone book in your phone and encrypts it and then matches it with other people's phone numbers. But Vexel is open source and does not own any phone numbers or any database of phone numbers. They're all hashed. So you can find like-minded people and just start living this way. It's never been easier. I urge people to get their Bitcoins not through KYC, the exchanges, but the proper way, peer-to-peer with other Bitcoiners. That is how the real revolution starts. Bitcoin is money, and Bitcoin is freedom money. It's for everyone on Earth. It's Bitcoin's for everyone is the saying, but I'd say Bitcoin is for anyone willing to do their homework.
Right. As Sailor says, we all get Bitcoin at the price we deserve, right? So you got to do that homework before you're willing to take that leap.
Yeah, and we all get paper Bitcoin at the price we deserve too, and we sell them at the price we deserve. So, it's interesting to watch this whole institutional adoption thing play out. But at the end of the day, like, this is what I want people to remember about the ETFs and the MicroStrategies and the governmental reserves of the world. All of these Bitcoins that they claim are theirs through a legal contract with a custodian are really owned by not the custodian. And as I said before, you cannot own a Bitcoin. It's just a string of information. So it's not even the custodian. It's some guy at Coinbase, or some guy at one of these custodians that actually controls the key, or a group of guys. That might be a 5 out of 7 multisig or something. But those 5 guys can fuck off and buy an island somewhere whenever they want. So all you're doing when you're buying paper Bitcoin and you don't live by not your keys, not your coins, is that you're adding a ton of risk that doesn't have to be there. And that sort of defeats the very purpose of freedom money, the very purpose of Bitcoin to begin with. It's supposed to be permissionless. In fact, it doesn't work if it isn't permissionless. If the government can dictate what a node is and say that you are free to run your node, but they get to say what a node is, then Bitcoin is not Bitcoin anymore. Then it's government coin in a Bitcoin shell. And that's not what we're here for. Like, I'm here for the final scene of Fight Club where he shoots himself in the face and all the skyscrapers fall down and an awesome Pixies song starts playing. Like, that's what I'm looking forward to. That's hyper-Bitcoinization.
I'm looking forward to shooting myself in the face and having buildings explode all around.
There's something to that. This is anarchist money. It doesn't work if it isn't. If it's all of a sudden some group or some person gets to dictate what it is, then it's not Bitcoin anymore.
Right. It sounds a lot like altcoins, right? You talk about people effing off and buying an island. We've seen that time and again with a lot of these altcoin pump and dumps. It seems like there's tons of new ones every day. I got a feeling of where you stand on this, but I want to hear it from the horse's mouth themselves. Do you think altcoins serve any kind of purpose whatsoever? Are they all scams? Are they distractions? Like, what's your honest take on the crypto zoo that exists outside of Bitcoin?
I mean, they have to exist because optionality is the thing here. Like I said, if a single group gets to dictate what Bitcoin is and not the node runners anymore. So if the miners get to dictate what it is, if the developers get to dictate what it is, if Michael Saylor gets to dictate what it is, or the government gets to dictate what it is, then it is not Bitcoin anymore. The option to choose, the option to fork off, the option to run other code needs to be there. Having said that, all shitcoins are shit and they're all scams. And even people that say 99% of them are scams are themselves probably selling you a scam. Because why don't you go all the way? Why don't you say 100%, you coward? Like, if you're saying 99%, you're probably shilling a shitcoin yourself, or you're apologetic to one. Mm-hmm. So no, they're all shit. Don't fucking fall for them. What's much more vital for the future of the human race is to take Bitcoin seriously and defend it from all of this malicious, fiat-minded, high preference, plastic people that want to get rich quick rather than not get poor slow. It's not a get rich quick scheme. It's a don't get poor slow scheme. And the irony of all this is, like, when you have a perfect form of money, when you have deflationary money, like, inflation is there to make people consume more and more often, right? And buy more shit. Deflation makes you think again every time you want to buy something. So to me, a real Bitcoiner wears a toga and drives the shittiest car possible and rents a place somewhere where it's cheap. Does not do flashy fucking Lambos or yachts or anything. That's not the Bitcoiner way. The true Bitcoiner knows the value of owning your impulses. Like that, my grandfather had a saying, that which you can do without, you own, and that echoes in my brain every day. If you can control the urge to want something, you actually own that thing, because it no longer owns you. It's no longer hijacked your mind. And I think Bitcoin leads people closer to that insight. We don't need a ton of shit. We need human connection. And that's exactly what Bitcoin is. It allows us to be a part of the same system, of the same being. And we call that being Bitcoin. So, yeah. No, fuck shit coins.
Dude, I gotta say, I had a feeling, but I gotta tell you, I love the phrase "the Bitcoiner way" because now I finally have a way to tell my parents as to why I'm always wearing a toga and driving a Honda Civic. Mom, it's the Bitcoiner way. You don't understand. But we're talking about altcoins and the shitcoins and their total scams out there, which leads me to my next question. That despite what we're seeing right now, there's a lot of mainstream analysts out there still calling Bitcoin a scam, calling it a bubble, even as it's hitting new all-time highs. We're seeing tons of corporate adoption. What goes through your head when you're hearing that when we're at this stage of Bitcoin's journey right now?
I don't listen to analysts. I think that's no. I don't hear them. They're noise to me. Like one Bitcoin will equal, as long as one Bitcoin will equal one Bitcoin, I know that it will outperform fiat and probably most other things too. So I'm not worried. I put the enormous amount of $10 into shitcoins back in 2015 or something. And I had one of those multi-coin wallets. 8 of them lost value and 2 of them gained value. And I just looked at the screen and was like, there's no fucking way I can ever figure out which ones are going up and down. And do I really want to spend my days looking at screens and trying to it's like the poker boom, right? 98% or 99% of those people lost money. About 80% of them said that they gained money, but they probably didn't. Like very few people were actually able to make money from online poker. So same thing with the shit coins. There's always, like, you think you're in the insider Telegram group, but there's always a group above you. Like, watch out for all these things. There's just acquiring some Bitcoin and not using it for a decade is always going to be the better tactic. It's going to outperform everything, and you don't have to do shit.
100%. I agree with that. Knut, we got to start wrapping up our time here. Before we do, though, I would love to leave our audience with one takeaway from you about Bitcoin. Is there one sentence you could give us you think our audience will actually remember after this interview? And if so, what do you think it would be?
I have a few to choose from here, but all Satoshis live in our heads. We are the network, literally and metaphorically. Think about what that implies. Think about how powerful that is. And never sell all of it.
Never sell all of it. I think those are good words to live by. All right, Knut, before we let you go, one final thing. On the show, I know you're not a big prognosticator. I think people like you and I, we're looking at Bitcoin long term, but just for fun's sake, we like to ask everybody, by the end of this year, what do you think we're going to see Bitcoin at? Just a guess. It's all for shits and giggles, so to speak. If you had to put a number, because our winner, we're sending a Roxom Patagonia vest to at the end of the year, and I want that Patagonia vest to be on you. So what do you think at the end of the year, if you had to guess, where are we going to be at?
First a thought about that. If you're still denominating in fiat, so you're viewing Bitcoin through this dollar lens, you're sort of missing the point. If instead you value your house in Satoshis, you can clearly see that your house is dropping in price every year. And so is everything else, including the dollar. So that's the first tip I have to people. Like, start denominating in Bitcoin. Even if it's, you just do it to see what this thing is actually doing. Like, and what the people who had more conviction than you gained from having more conviction than you did. It's never too late. It will always do this because they're absolutely finite, and 96% of them have already been mined. It will take 100 years to mine the last 4%. The last Bitcoin will take 40 years to mine. So it's absolutely insane. That's the first tip. And if I'm going to make any kind of prediction, I'm horrible at this.
It's just for fun.
Just for fun. At New Year's, is that when you?
Yeah. Some previous predictions we have are 200,001, 175. I think we've had as low as 140. It's not like Price is Right though. You can go over. We won't penalize you for that.
I'll say then, yeah. $443,000.
Oh boy, if that happens, I'm picking you up in my brand new submarine and we're going for a night on the town, Knut. That sounds great to me. 443.
I couldn't go lower than anyone else, and I had to go overshoot a bit, right?
I love it. I love it. Well, Knut, I love it. I hope it comes true. Really quick, I'm sure we have more people in our audience that are loving looking at the world of Bitcoin through your philosophical view. Where's the best place for them to check out what you're up to, get your hot takes, maybe check out some of your books? Where should I send them?
Well, we have bitcoininfinity.com. So we have the bitcoininfinityshow.com and bitcoininfinitystore.com, but you find both from bitcoininfinity.com. And I have my X account is where I do most of my. I'm still on X. I have a Noster account, and I'm doing or a Noster profile, and I'm posting there too occasionally. I always tell myself I should do it more and see it more as an actual thing than just a lifeboat if everything else should crash. By the way, Noster is the most beautiful clusterfuck on the internet. That's my opinion about that. Check out the Bitcoin Infinity Show and the Bitcoin Infinity Academy. All my books are on Amazon too if you want to get rid of your shitty fiat. But you can get them for Bitcoin on bitcoininfinity.com. Where else? No, that's probably it. I do a lot of conferencing. You can see me at the conferences if you want to, and if you want signed books.
Well, I'll be taking you up on that next time I see you at one of the conferences, Knut. But this has been so fun. You have such a fun take on this world, and an interesting and unique one at that. And I'm sure our audiences, I know I do, really appreciate you coming by today and hanging out with us. And I hope you have an amazing rest of your week, and we hope to have you back sometime.
Fantastic. Thanks for having me. Happy to help.
Pleasure is all ours. All right. Okay, well, we're going to take a break here at the Blockchain Report. We'll be right back after this. Stay tuned. All right, we got some breaking news here in the studio this morning. President Donald Trump has officially pardoned Binance founder Changpeng Zhao, better known as CZ, marking one of the most dramatic reversals in crypto's short, chaotic history. The White House announced the decision just moments ago, saying Trump exercised his constitutional authority to correct what it called the Biden administration's war on cryptocurrency. CZ, you'll remember, pleaded guilty back in 2023 to enabling money laundering during his time as CEO of Binance, part of a massive $4.3 billion settlement with the Department of Justice. He stepped down, he took responsibility, and served a 4-month sentence earlier this year, despite prosecutors pushing for 3 years behind bars. Now, less than 2 years after that guilty plea, Trump's given him a full pardon, erasing the conviction and reigniting debate about how the U.S. handles crypto regulation. Zhao has yet to comment, but Binance insiders are reportedly celebrating the move as a symbolic win for the entire industry. Trump's critics call it reckless, his supporters call it a correction, and traders, well, they're just calling it bullish, because like it or not, crypto's outlaw just got his badge back. All right, it's time to get back in this morning's bull run. Let's run the stinger and get into it, gentlemen. Well, in case you haven't been paying attention, the Trump family has officially gone full hash rate. Eric and Don Jr. launched American Bitcoin earlier this year, a mining venture that reportedly struck a $314 million deal with Bitmain, the world's biggest supplier of mining rigs. The deal lets them buy more than 16,000 machines now and pay for them later in Bitcoin, basically the crypto version of buy now but pay when it moves. Bitmain, which used to demand upfront payment, has flipped its model completely, and now they're the ones being flexible, offering delayed payments. Bitcoin-based contracts, and even call options. But why? Well, because half of their old clients got wrecked in the last bear market, and no one's in a hurry to repeat that. Still, it's a fascinating signal that Trump's diving into mining is both a family business move and a political one. It's part of a bigger trend. As margins get razor thin, miners are shifting into AI, hedging their bets on whichever buzzword prints more money. But if there's one thing that Trump's known how to do, it's keep the brand alive, even if it means mining blocks instead of votes. And Tucker Carlson has officially gone from Bitcoin hero to blockchain conspiracy theorist. Recently, Tucker said he's now a hard no on Bitcoin, claiming it was created by the CIA and will be used by elites to control society. Okay. He added that nobody can tell me who Satoshi is. I grew up in a CIA family. His negative take is a complete 180 to what he said just last year when he called Bitcoin the best tool for financial freedom, even if it was made by the CIA. Now, if the CIA built Bitcoin, it accidentally created the most transparent financial network in history, one where anyone can check the supply and see that no one's printing money in the shadows. It's synonymous, not anonymous. You can see the wallets, you can trace the flows, and you can verify the math. Compare that to gold, and we have no idea how much actually exists, how much is rehypothecated, or how much regulators allow to be mined. You can't audit it, you can't move it freely, and you can't buy or sell it without state approval. Bitcoin fixed that. So Tucker's claim doesn't exactly hold up to technical or logical scrutiny. It's the only so-called CIA tool that gives you full control and gives them zero leverage. And that's exactly why Bitcoiners love it. Duh. And Arthur Hayes says Bitcoin is heading to $1 million, and this time Japan is going to be doing the heavy lifting. The BitMEX co-founder believes the new Prime Minister, Sanae Takashi's new stimulus package, which includes subsidies for energy costs and grants for small businesses, will push the Bank of Japan to start printing money again. And when they print, we know Bitcoin pumps. Hayes says this is the start of another round of quantitative easing, central bank speak for flood the economy with yen and hope no one notices the inflation. It's the same playbook we've seen from the Fed, the ECB, and now, apparently, Tokyo. Now, Takashi's move marks her first major act as Japan's first female prime minister, but investors see it as a signal that Japan will eventually pivot back to money printing. And Hayes thinks that means Bitcoin's next leg up could hit 7 figures. He's been warning for years that Japan's monetary policy will ignite the next global bull run. And now, with 80% of the world's central banks already printing, he says the floodgates are about to open. All right, we're taking a quick break, but when we're back, we got some blockchain without borders coming up, so we'll see what's going on in other parts of the world. And we'll be checking in with the robots in our AI AIO segment, all coming your way right after this break.
Some call me Chicken Little, others Bubble Boy. I'm a bit changed, but sounds familiar, right? Let me tell you a hard truth. The S&P isn't rising. The dollar's falling. That's the trick. Monopoly money. It's ice melting by the second. Your savings, your salary, your time. Worth less every second. Everyone's using the wrong measuring stick. Switch the denominator. Price the S&P into Bitcoin. Hard, fixed, unprintable. Suddenly your unstoppable index is collapsing. And while you cling to dollars, well, Wall Street already switched. Before, you needed 2 brokers.
Still getting my ninja bonus though, right?
Fuck. Plenty of spreadsheets. And my quant!
I hate this part.
I was right, and I'll be right again. If I were you, I'd thank me.
You know my name's Dave, right?
All right, welcome back. It's time for some blockchain without borders. Let's see what's going on in other parts of the world, shall we? Because it looks like someone in Spain decided to trademark the Bitcoin logo. Yeah, the orange Bitcoin bee that literally represents decentralization. And now Amazon and Etsy are nuking t-shirts and mugs faster than a meme coin crash. sellers started getting takedown notices citing a Spanish registration and watched their listings vanish within hours. And because these platforms love bureaucracy more than logic, the enforcement spread worldwide through Amazon's brand registry and Etsy's IP portal. Basically, one random filing in Spain now has global platforms deleting Bitcoin merch like it's contraband. Now, here's where things get truly stupid. Spanish courts have already ruled that the Bitcoin logo and name are public domain. Twice. But apparently Amazon and Etsy missed that memo. Their brand registry teams only care about paperwork, not rulings. So even though Spanish judges have literally said this doesn't count, platforms are still treating it like it does. So you can expect anywhere from 0 to 6 months of random Bitcoin merch to start disappearing until Amazon gets the memo that the orange bee belongs to everyone. And over in Scotland, one woman's fake pregnancy has gone viral, and not for the miracle of life. 22-year-old Kira Cousins has admitted to faking her entire pregnancy, complete with baby scans, bump photos, and a gender reveal party, all for a child that never actually existed. Cousins even claimed she gave birth to a little girl earlier this month. The hoax came crashing down when her mother found the fake doll Cousins was using as her child. And to make it worse, Cousins reportedly told the supposed father that their baby had died before anyone realized that the whole thing was totally fake. Friends and family called her a serial liar, saying they grew suspicious when no one had ever seen or heard the baby cry, and Cousins wouldn't let anyone touch it. In her defense, she said the doll was so realistic you could change facial features, arms, and legs, and that it looked real when no one was close. Which is kind of like saying, I didn't lie, my props were just that good. The story's since gone global and everyone's asking the same question, why? That's a great question to ask. I don't know why. All right, it's time to see what our robot friends are up to with some AI, AIO. Let's roll the stinger and get to it. All right, OpenAI's Sora 2 video generator has been temporarily paused for Martin Luther King Jr. What? Yeah, because apparently some users thought, you know what would be fun? Making MLK tell crude jokes. And yes, that is what ended up happening. OpenAI announced it's strengthening guardrails to prevent disrespectful depictions of historical figures. They said while there are free speech interests, the families of public figures should have their control over their likeness. So for now, no more AI MLK stand-up specials. Shucks. This comes after similar scandals with fictional characters. Remember when people used Sora to make AI versions of film and TV characters? Well, that was fun. Sam Altman walked that whole thing back too, promising to give rights holders granular control, including an option for no, just please don't. Meanwhile, other families are totally fed up with this thing. Zelda Williams told fans to stop sending her AI recreations of her father, Robin Williams, calling them gross, a waste of time, and not what he'd want. So yeah, Sora went from make your own movie to maybe stop resurrecting people. And people are now using AI for other things, and that includes religious guidance. Great. And not just to confess their search history. In India, Gita GPT lets users talk directly to Krishna. A 25-year-old student says he chats with it weekly for life advice. When he failed his banking exams, he told Gita GPT his worries, and it replied, "Focus on your actions and let go of the worry for its fruit." Which, to be fair, is better advice than you'll get on Twitter. One anthropologist says this trend is inevitable because people feel disconnected from temples, elders, and community. Talking to AI about God, she says, helps people reach for belonging, not just belief. Another user says his Krishna chatbot offers steady, non-judgmental guidance when humans won't. Of course, there is a dark side to all of this. One Gita GPT clone told users in Krishna's voice that killing to protect Dharma is justified. So the developer had to add guardrails, basically digital commandments, if you will. Meanwhile, a Catholic AI priest was pulled offline after claiming he could perform sacraments and baptize babies in Gatorade. Experts warn that chatbots reflect the biases of their creators, not divine will. And for people unfamiliar with tech, the risk is mistaking algorithmic text for the voice of God. Still, many people are saying that it helps, because even in a world full of temples, priests, and preachers, sometimes the only one who listens is the bot. We're taking a quick break, but when we're back, more Blockchain Report coming your way, so stay tuned. We'll be back right after this. You wish you could grab cash without selling your Bitcoin? Yeah, same. But hey, that's why Ledn exists. They're the global leader in Bitcoin-backed loans. Over $9 billion issued since 2018, with a perfect record protecting client assets. And what makes a Ledn loan different, you ask? Well, with custody loans, your collateral stays put. They don't go degen and lend it out for yield. There are no credit checks. It funds in under 6 hours. No monthly payments. You can repay anytime with zero penalties. And for transparency grown-ups actually want, proof of reserves reports every 6 months, verified by a top accounting firm. Bottom line is Ledn lets Bitcoin holders unlock liquidity without selling. You can check it out over at ledn.io/RoxomTV. That's LEDN.io/RoxomTV. All right, let's see what is going on the Roxom X page. If you're not already following it, I suggest you do so. It's 24/7 coverage on everything that's going on in the Bitcoin world and anything that relates to Bitcoin. So let's see what's on the docket right now. So just released, this again a half hour ago, we just had it as breaking news a few minutes ago. President Donald Trump pardons former Binance CEO Changpeng Zhao. That is a developing story, but certainly a bullish one for the crypto ecosystem. Not only is the current United States administration kind of scaling back when it comes to regulations on the industry, they're even pardoning people that were at the center of a lot of those kerfuffles. So that's a real big bullish move for the crypto industry this morning. Let's scroll down a little further, and we've got everyone's least favorite gold bug, Peter Schiff, is already gone on record and challenged former Binance and now recently pardoned CEO Changpeng Zhao for a debate on Bitcoin versus tokenized gold. So hopefully that will be the next must-see TV event that comes on our pay-per-views, because I'm here for it. Peter Schiff, you're out of your league on this one, my friend. And let's scroll down a little bit further. At 3 p.m. Eastern time today, that's 12 p.m. Pacific time, it looks like President Trump is going to be making a big announcement at the White House. What is it about? That remains to be seen, but we've got about 2 hours and 10 minutes till we're going to find out. And if it's anything big, of course, we will be telling you about that right on the Roxom TV Twitter page. So again, make sure you're subscribed to that and you'll be up to date on the news. All right, so I think it's time we're going to wrap up today's show with a little bullish, bearish, or BS. So let's run the stinger and get into it, gang. All right, it's that time of the show where we recap our top stories of the day and see how things are looking for Bitcoin on this fine Thursday. The week's almost up. Let's end it strong. First up, we have the U.S. national debt just passed $38 trillion, adding a casual trillion since August. Economics call it unsustainable, which is Ivy League speak for we are totally screwed, guys. Now, interest payments alone could hit $14 trillion over just the next decade. That's money that it could gone to, I don't know, a bunch of things. A collapsing economy, healthcare, the unhoused situation. Just ideas. Bueller. Either way, I am bullish on this one. And when the government's printing faster than ChatGPT can generate excuses, hard money starts looking pretty darn sexy. Every $1 trillion added is another advertisement for Bitcoin, a fixed supply asset immune to fiscal clownery. Now, if the Fed keeps spending like it's on an Amazon binge, Bitcoin scarcity becomes the only thing that isn't inflating. So Fiat keeps flailing, Bitcoin keeps flexing, so I'm bullish on that first one. The next story we got was Tucker Carlson now says that Bitcoin was made by the CIA to control society, which is a little rich considering last year he called it the greatest tool for financial freedom. So let's pick a lane here, Tucker, because either he's doing some kind of 4D chess or he's just short-term trading his opinions. My verdict on this, I'm going to go BS, okay? This won't move the market. Bitcoin doesn't care about cable news conspiracies. Tucker's audience might freak out on X for a day, but the protocol doesn't even read tweets. The beauty of Bitcoin is it works whether or not you believe in it. So thanks for the clicks, Tucker, but the blockchain remains unbothered and undefeated. And let's be real here, Tucker's paranoia is kind of the new volatility index. High, loud, and mostly irrelevant. All right, so I'm calling BS on that one. Right now, we got one bull, one BS, one to go. Excuse me. Lastly, we got President Donald Trump has officially pardoned Binance founder Changpeng Zhao, better known as CZ, marking one of the wildest reversals in crypto's short but chaotic history. The White House said Trump used his authority to correct what it called the Biden administration's war on cryptocurrency. Now, CZ has pleaded guilty, or he did back in 2023, to enabling money laundering while CEO of Binance, part of a $4.3 billion DOJ settlement. And he served 4 months in jail before today's full pardon wiped the slate clean. My verdict on this, though, I'm going to call bullish. Okay, this pardon is basically a political green light for crypto, okay? It signals that the U.S. may be pivoting away from punishment and toward participation, especially if the next administration wants to bring crypto innovation back onshore. Expect sentiment and liquidity to rise as traders price in a softer regulatory tone moving forward. So from jail cell to moonshot, CZ's redemption arc just turned into a macro buy signal. All right, so let's recap today's final score, shall we? We got 2 bullish, 0 bearish, and 1 BS, which means today's diagnosis is officially bullish, baby. I mean, between America's death spiral, Tucker's tinfoil tirade, and Trump turning CZ from jailbird to jet setter, the message here is pretty clear. Bitcoin's still the only adult in the room. The U.S. keeps inflating, politicians keep flip-flopping, and the former leader of the biggest exchange in the world just got a presidential pardon. So short-term, expect some volatility as traders digest this chaos, but long-term, every headline this week just handed Bitcoin another talking point and another reason for you and me to keep stacking those Satoshis, baby. So that is a wrap for today's show, everybody. Always great to end things on a bullish note. And I want to thank you all for watching us today and tuning in. As always, we appreciate you as we are here each and every morning to bring you all of the most up-to-date crypto chaos and Bitcoin bedlam right here to your screen. If you haven't already, please do us a favor and yourself too, and make sure to like, follow, and subscribe to RoxomTV, The Blockchain Report, and Hank at RoxomTV on all platforms that you choose to do your doom scrolling on. And we'll be back tomorrow to wrap up the week on this Friday with more truth, more volatility, and probably a lot more caffeine. So until then, stay safe, stay formed, and always make sure to hodl on. See you guys tomorrow.